Hello again, guys. I'm feeling in the mood for a little storytelling. It's me again, Festus, here to introduce you to a whole new cast of characters, except for the originals, which is me, Festus, your belligerent narrator. I'm engaged with Lady K. We're both working on our PhD part-time while working at a research lab. We work hard and lift harder. Lady K, as mentioned before, she's one of the women that attract the attention of Sir Ham. Okay, now it's time for the main one, Jake, the beard. He is exceedingly fat. He's the Baron Harkonnen of this story. He's around 6 foot, but 350 pounds. He likes anime anything. He has a grad degree in computer science, but he's actually kind of smart. He doesn't apply himself. He's really lazy, and he thinks he's indispensable, as he is the only computer guy on the research team. Anne, the head of the research team. She's really smart. Duh. She's got 5 different PhDs. She's very strict, but she's very nice. She's 5'4" and just attractive enough for her to be beard bait, but not being so attractive as to put them off. She's super chill. She doesn't judge anyone, just in case their science is good. Pete, he's my friend on the team. We work pretty closely, as our fields overlap. He does chemistry at a PhD. He's the chillest guy I've ever met, and he's real gullible. He's not mentioned much in this story, but I'll bring him up anyway. Our story starts as soon as Lady K and I left university, fresh with our new shiny master's degrees. We got snapped up by a research lab, who also sponsored our PhDs, with a contract that we work with, during, and after the completion of the PhDs. The job doesn't pay much, but we get by on a tiny flat, and crappy internet, looking ahead to the time when our contracts expire, so we can make more money. As a matter of fact, the story really starts at the first day of our new job, where it just so happens that a new research project had just been started, and we could fit right into the team. Anne shows us around the lab, our eyes shining like childs in a toy store, looking at all the fancy and exciting science stuff that we'll be using on a day-to-day basis. We meet Pete. He and I naturally get into a macho showdown. We stare at each other in the eyes, and we strain not to blink. Or he didn't look up. He just merely said a quick "hi" to us as we passed. Labs generally have no eating rules in the place. That way you can prevent contamination of samples, or get stuff on your food. Tapping away on his keyboard was Jake, who greets us by doing an overly dramatic chair spin, and saying, in the most American accent possible,
"Ah, the new arrivals. It's bloody marvelous to have you two here at last."
I won't fault him for being welcoming, but he acted like he owned the place. Granted, he did take up a substantial amount of the spare room in the lab, but that does not equal ownership. Otherwise, Counter-Strike would own me. Jake spots the glittering ring on Lady K, and he chuckles to himself before saying,
"Why'd he even bother giving you that ring? It's hardly there. The idiot can't value you very much, that he thinks a 400-pound ring is good enough for anyone."
I forced a smile out in the most uncomfortable way that us Brits master at a very young age, contemplating the vast expense of the ring, which was made with platinum rather than silver or white gold, both of which are much cheaper. I don't know what it is, but I despise using gold if I can avoid it. I think it looks tacky and fake. The ring was set with a small black diamond, which was her favorite stone. I had put a lot of thought into the ring. I even stole one of Lady K's favorites to get the right ring size. We both adored the ring, and to tell you the truth, I nearly missed a payment on the student debt, the money which was lent to me by my parents. Lent, not given. I'm not like Andrew. Jake blunders on through the social interaction, directs a salvo of questions to Lady K.
"Is he mean to you? Do you love him?
And then the killer.
Does he make you scream at night?"
The first 3 she answered, but the last one had her telling him, with an icy shard in her voice,
"It's none of your business what we do at night."
Jake didn't know that I was the guy, and at this point, I had a really strange feeling of deja vu. Seeing the impending doom, I quickly averted it by firing a question back at Jake. "So, you're the computer guy, huh? What do you do exactly?" Jake took this opportunity to launch into a very lengthy and loud explanation of what he did on a day-to-day basis, which was basically,
"I take all your numbers from your little experiments, and I entered them into my self-made program.
Which was worse in every way than the free online software.
Then I graphed the data. I also set up the computers for the experiments, and I'm the acting essential IT guy for the research team.
He threw in some other technical terms, clearly expecting us not to know anything about them, but he was totally unaware of my immense nerdiness, as I've done coding, PC building, and other related things. However, instead of calling him out on his crap, I filed the data away, so we can have at least a short-term workplace harmony. The rest of the week passed by fairly uneventfully. The experiments were done, data was logged, and Jake constantly hit on Ann and Lady K, making the commutes back and forth from home kind of awkward for Lady K, but it was actually enjoyable too because we swapped tales of Jake's comments and Ann's equally hilarious reactions to his comments. These reactions included, but not limited to, ignoring him, blushing, turning extremely white like a frightened chameleon on a bedsheet, spinning on her heels and swooshing away, and sneezing. No joke, she genuinely sneezed in surprise when he made one particular outrageous comment like,
"Wow, I can barely focus on numbers with your awe-inspiring ass majestically looming nearby."
Sir Ham, the Goblet of Dew, Part 2. Well, Neckbeard Seekers, we meet again to swap another story of the dark things that lurk within the minds of neckbeards, of curdled Dorito dips, and mysterious particles of unmentionable food. Today, we'll be dealing with the most peculiar tale, one of our dear friend Jake, and his heroic acts in the face of dangers. One crisp Monday morning, our heroes are gathering in the shelter of the small science laboratory from the frigid gale that has buffeted the windows. Heating was turned up. Our valiant protagonist was preparing to conduct an experiment, which involved some very dangerous chemicals. Specifically, a very high concentration of hydrogen peroxide. There's a Wikipedia article on this. The gist is, when you're dealing with high concentrated H2O2, you have to be very careful. It's basically old-fashioned rocket fuel, and it has a massive explosion risk. Even at 50% concentration, the slightest spark, and there's a fiery explosion that kills you and anyone nearby, or makes you wish you were dead. The experiment used a substantial amount of stuff, so there was far more stringent rules put into place than usual. Things such as, don't leave anything at your station, tidy up immediately, wear protective suits to prevent any getting on you or on your skin, and if it gets on your suit, you go to the emergency showers immediately. That was to keep us safe and to keep the lab from being sued, just in case of an accident. So, Lady K and I set up the experiment, and comes over to inspect it, making sure everything's to specification, looking to see if it's surgically clean, removing any possible variables, such as things brought about by dirt. Jake was seated in the adjacent room, ensuring that all the slow-motion camera feeds were working properly, while munching on copious amounts of snack foods. Pete was checking temperatures, concentrations, pH levels, and ensuring that everything was exactly the way it should be, and recorded everything. Finally, the afternoon, everyone was ready. The atmosphere was palpable, and was very pleased at the precise and fast work, meaning the experiment can run sooner. With bated breath, we watched the cameras begin to flash, and blinked to indicate that it was now recording, and read off the name of the experiment, the date, the time, as well as the team members, before motioning us to start the experiment. With careful movements, we start to perform the experiment, putting drops of various chemicals onto others. Just the final stages of the experiment was occurring. Then Jake burst into the room. He pulls Lady K back from the chemicals.
"There's a spill which threatened your life. I felt like it was my duty to heroically save you before you could come to harm."
He got pushed back by Lady K, but it was too late. The window of opportunity to add the final chemical had passed, and Jake had contaminated the environment too much to continue. I wasn't really listening, as I was more irate that we had to redo the experiment because of just one last crucial step had not happened due to our brash beard's blundering aid being given at the least helpful time. There were 3 things that annoyed me. 1. There was not a spill of H2O2, rather it was a tiny amount of alcohol, which is used to clean the equipment without leaving residue. Number 2, we had to reset the entire experiment. One part was useless without the others, and the items, they're unstable. The products of stage 1, they don't last long enough to be stored, and as well, they're very dangerous to store because of their explosive nature. Additionally, the protective gear was really hot and sweaty, and I'd had to get back into that at least one more time, thanks to this beard's heroic act. Number 3, Jake didn't follow lab procedure, which would have involved the intercom system being used to warn us about the spill to avoid situations as the one he just caused. Jake got a very stern talking to, and he got his monthly bonus docked due to his actions, but the worst is yet to come. The protective suits are large enough to wear over your clothing, but the gloves are tight, so you can retain manual dexterity while you're wearing them. As a result, you can't wear rings or bracelets, so Lady K had to remove her ring and carefully placed it inside of her locker. These spaces have locks, but they're basically useless. It can be opened, no joke, with the handle of a teaspoon. We've only worked at the lab for only 2 weeks at this point, so we didn't know the nature of these crappy locks. As we retrieved our personal belongings, Lady K's locker was adjacent to Jake's. He had spent several hours unsupervised while we were setting up the experiment. Lady K turned to me in tears, and she whispered,
Festus, it's gone. The ring is gone.
I was shocked as I had watched her put her ring in there. I was certain of it, but nevertheless, we carefully scrutinized the ground around. Our search returned no results, and so Lady K asked everyone if they'd seen her ring. Lo and behold, Jake piped up at that moment with his annoying voice and said,
Oh, yeah. I found it on the floor outside your locker, so I picked it up to give it back to you.
Jake pulled the ring out of his pocket, as he said he placed it there for safekeeping, instead of putting it on Lady K's desk, which would have been the reasonable move. Now, there was no way that the ring was actually on the floor, but we chose to give Jake the benefit of the doubt, and we let him off. Tears of relief rolled down Lady K's cheeks, as she buried her head into my shoulder. I kissed her forehead and I hugged her in a comforting way. Jake was astounded, and he looked at Lady K with horror and distaste, before finally saying,
You're cheating on your fiancé with him?
I looked at him oddly, only realizing then that he didn't know that I was her fiancé, and explained very carefully, I'm her fiancé. Even if I wasn't, her cheating is none of your business. You don't even know either of us. As we commuted home, we decided to take a cheat night that night and order pizza, cause it was a stressful one, thanks to Jake. Now we enter in the territory of the weight room, where we get to experience Sir Ham and his fat logic. Here we go. Our work is relatively hazardous, as opposed to some comfy office jobs where you just sit there and tap the keyboard all day. There is a lot of keyboard work involved, and a surprising amount of getting funds for the project, which includes grants and so on. But this is all interspersed with messing around with dangerous chemicals, the sorts which you should absolutely not eat. Although I'm pretty certain you shouldn't eat anything in an office job anyway, except for your own food. I'm sure the paperwork doesn't taste very good. At least paper won't kill you if you try to eat it. This adds a level of risk to your job, a risk which must be compensated by the employer. In this case, our salary and package was really good. It involved a basic salary, which you always get, a performance-related bonus based on the ratings it was given by your teammates, and a conservative food and housing grant, and a gym membership. So it was. One lazy Saturday afternoon, Lady K and I found ourselves entering the gym. As if we were in an no sleep, some terrible demon would haunt this gym, devouring the souls working out, as a certain Neckbeard loomed nearby, spreading his toxic ethos of fat logic, placing his noxious miasma above the building, while he did his bar-only curls, while a queue of testosterone-fueled teenagers took selfies, and not really lifting anything. Spotting us, Jake began to grunt loudly, and he counted in an exaggerated tone, lifting his 20 kilogram or 40 pounds as fast as he could, which isn't really that bad. I watched him. He did about 7.5 before throwing the bar down.
50. Phew, what a set.
Now, I'm a firm believer that anyone who wants to work out, that is awesome. I'll not judge a fat guy for working out. He's trying to better himself. That's great. is only when they start to spew fat logic and corrupt the gym with that bile is when we have a problem. Jake waddles over to us as we're doing our warm-up calisthenics. He flops down on the floor, triggering all seismometers within a 10-kilometer radius, and it flooded the televisions with earthquake panic. He gets out a sweaty ham and chicken sandwich. I actually like mayo, I'll put it on various food items, but his sandwich was dripping with it, like water, and it was like a saturated sponge. Lady K and I finish up our warm-ups, and we move on to the dumbbell rack. Jake, I noticed, was following us like a lost duckling, or a fat wolf after a sheep, and copied everything I did. To check this, I started doing the most ridiculous, impractical exercises, such as handstand push-ups and one-arm pull-ups. Sure enough, Jake copied everything, perhaps in an effort to improve his form, or more likely like a snake measuring its body length, to check as to whether it could eat you successfully or not, and to see if he was much stronger than I. When he moved, he was actually fairly strong. For someone who didn't go to the gym that often, he lifted just under half of what I lifted, and he matched Lady K, so it was actually quite impressive. After we made our usual circuits, we broke for a break, and Jake joined us, gasping and chugging Gatorade from a liter bottle while we sipped our water to rehydrate. He pulled out a veritable feast from his rucksack. I saw chicken wings, thermos, and several foil wrapped squares, which I assume were sandwiches, but could have been slabs of lard for all I could tell. He noisily chewed down until we started to head back to the gym to carry on. As I rode the adrenaline high, I saw Jake saddle over to the abandoned deadlift bar, and I watched him try to lift what I lifted. Jake could not even deadlift one side of the bar. He looked around again, and to his chagrin, he noticed me laughing at his horrible form, which probably wasn't cool, but is actually quite funny to see. He strolled over to us, and he poked me in the chest and said,
"It's easier for you, dipshit."
Surprised at his sudden alphaness, I responded with a quick and fiery, What?
Yeah, it's easier for you skinny. You don't have as much gravity pulling you down.
I was mad because Jake was coming over all Andrew-like, so I said, "Look, if you can best me at even one exercise, I'll never laugh at you again. You can even choose which one we do." We had gathered quite a crowd of teenagers, bench bros, and bunnies, and unwilling to lose face, Jake chose to try to outbench me, as he just noticed that I just got done with 10 sets at the bench press, and I was pretty tired. Jake went first. He loaded the bar with 220 pounds. He actually managed to lift it. He struggled for every millimeter, but he did it, which is actually really good. Then it was my turn. The Bench Brothers, who was overseeing the contest, chuckled slightly as I casually added on more weight to about 310. I barely lifted it, but I did lift it with a grunt. Jake couldn't lift that. I was in so much pain after that I had to run to the bathroom. Then I heard Jake shouting,
"If it was possible for me to lose weight, I'd be a skinny boy like that,
So there you have it. The next day, I could barely move my arms, and my chest was hurting really bad. So that's your introduction to Jake. I have more on the way. Next up, feminism. Jake tries to woo my ladies, trying to give them a talk on what their rights are. Thank you very much for joining me for this edition of the Neckbeard Experience. This is going to be in 2 parts. I'm reading 3 stories apiece. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll get out the next part as soon as possible, and I don't know if I'm going to make it a compilation since there's only 2. I don't know. What do you guys think? Leave your comments down below. Thank you very much to my patrons for their support. It means a lot. If you want to be a patron and help this channel, just go to my Patreon in the link below, just $1 a month, and you can get these episodes in downloadable MP3s and listen to it anytime you want. So have a great weekend, and remember, have fun with your failures, or they'll have fun with you.